everyone, Paul ISM, walking to part 1 of our Tamiya 124th Sauber Mercedes C9 video build. Now, I put a post up on Facebook, if you remember ISM Facebook, on my Paul ISM modelling page. You'll have seen a post I put up asking which build would you like to see me do next. I had 6 choices, you all voted, well over 200 of you voted, and this build won unanimously. This had twice as many votes as anything else there. So I reviewed this the other day. You can go back and check out the review, and if you want to buy one, I've got them in stock at umpretail.com. I'll put a link in the description down below. They are $37.99, I believe, so go over there and help support our business if you want to. Looks a great kit. Although it's a 30-year-old kit, it's been released several boxings. This one comes with a nice sheet of PE and some nice cartograph decals. It's a nice simple decal scheme, and it's just a great looking car and something I've always wanted to build, so that's what we're going to do today. So let's jump straight in and get started with the build. Hey everyone, please subscribe to the channel, click the bell notifications, get notified of our latest videos, give the video a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and leave a comment. I do read and appreciate every comment you guys and girls leave behind. I may not reply to them all, but they are all appreciated. And there's a link in the description of the video that takes you to a big long list of all handy videos and a lot of the products I use in my videos. You now have the chance to support the video content creation by using Patreon or the PayPal me link in the description down below. All the videos always remain free to watch. This is just your chance to help support the videos. Okay, so we start as usual, familiarising ourselves with the instructions. I've used a highlighter to highlight any parts that need either painting in body colour or need looking at before we get to paint and what have you. We're going to cut off all the relevant parts. There's not a huge amount of them on this kit, but just keep referring to instructions, which needs which, and look at the best way to not only cut them off and clean them up, but look at the way to mount them all. It'd be wonderful to be able to leave this all attached on the sprue to paint and clear, but it will leave points of the body where you can see it's not been painted. So we're going to have to cut all these sprue locator points off, clean them all up, and then paint these as 2 individual parts. It's a real shame. If the sprue placement was a bit more thoughtful, you could probably get away with it, i.e. it was underneath, which Tamiya does quite a lot on some of the kits now. But unfortunately, it's a bit of an afterthought and done for ease of manufacturing. So we just cut everything off as close as we can, very carefully with our Tamiya side cutters. And then we can come in with our sander and get everything nice and cleaned up. So the wing mirrors are going to be a different body colour than the body. They're going to be yellow. So we'll get them all prepped and painted at the same time because we need to clear coat them. And then obviously there's other parts to put on the bodywork, such as this. And then just go through and look at what other parts are. There's various lights on there, but looking through the instructions, they can go on later. So you need to just have a good think here about the way to do things. We've got a 400 customizable UMP sander, cut to size. I'm just going to carefully take care of all the sprue locator points. Not really anything hard to deal with on this. No real work to do, if that makes sense. It was quite quick and simple. This was probably the hardest bit on the rear spoiler, just because of the curves of the spoiler. So I got most of it off with the 400, then came in with a sponge, so we didn't root profile the edge and just give it a good clean up until we're happy. Seam front to back on the body as usual. Obviously we're in 2 sections here, so start one point, work your way forward. Don't use a massive amount of force. We're not trying to reshape the part, we're simply trying to get rid of the seam off the back. So they run from the back all the way up to the front. You can literally see it. It's quite easy to spot on the silver plastic. And then along the tops at the side, run across the rear wing. So nice, simple to deal with. Nice body considering the age of it. It's a 30-year-old kit. It's a nice clean body to work with. Not too difficult really. A little bit tricky in places, but nothing really taxing. And then obviously underneath we can come in with our buffer, buff it all up, and then polish it back up to a nice high shine plastic. If you find it needs repeating again, be careful, the seam on the back is quite difficult to see, but if you feel it needs repeating again, just repeat, go back over again. You're better to do it twice than do too much once. That's my way of thinking on this. And again, we work on the front body panel exactly the same. 400 customizable. Then our sponge, get rid of the seam along the sides. Be nice and careful here. We don't want to be reprofiling the shape or removing anything we shouldn't be. So just some careful sanding along the way. Like I say, nothing too bad to do. Didn't take long at all. I think I had this prepped in about 30 minutes. It really didn't take long to do at all. You've just got these seams to clean up and then the body panel to glue in place on the front. You may find using the thinny sponge a little bit easier, just due to the shape of it and the size. Makes it a little bit easier to handle. But just take your time. You're not trying to reprofile it. You don't be hitting parts of the model you shouldn't be. You just want to take your time. Once you're happy, we've got it all back to nice clean plastic. We're going to use our 220 sponge now to go around and flat all the plastic in preparation for primer. So we're just going to go round and dull all the plastic, lose all that shine, and give us a nice even tone all the way around the model. So just go around, take all that sheen off, and we'll be all good to go. Okay, wing mirrors are a little bit more tricky to deal with. They require a little bit more finesse with being small parts. Quite a nasty seam around all these, all the way around. So just take your time. Don't exert a lot of pressure on it. Just let the sander do the job and you'll get rid of the seam really quick. Fiddly little part to hold, but you'll soon get through it, no bother at all. Now we've got some PE to add. As you can see, we glued that piece in front, on the front of the bonnet, if you want to call it that. Just literally popped it in place, hit it with a Tamiya extra thin, job done. Then we've got a bit of PE to add over these vents at the front, so that it needs rolling into shape. You can see the profile it holds. So if you've got a roll machine, I have one. I never really use it. I like to use a UMP sponge sander, some sort of tool. I've got the UMP PE file here, diamond file, anything that's round, cylindrical, and then just put a little bit of pressure on it. We're not trying to bend it, as in fold it. We're trying to roll it so it gets a shape, and as you can see, nearly there. Probably just needs one more go over. That'll be pretty much the shape. So we do that both sides. They are handed. Make sure they get the correct side for each one. And then a few dabs of glue. You have to be quite generous here to grab this. There we go. Just place them all on the way. Now, we don't want to come out the side. We don't want to splurge out the side of the PE, but we want to hold it. So I'm applying it thicker in the middle. I'm applying a sticky PE on. We'll flip it over and we'll put some CA kicker through the back to glue it on, and just put a little dab at the front. And then this is where you'll be careful with your placement, because you get one chance to do this really. So make sure your aim is straight and true. And very, very carefully place where it should go. So the hole that you can see on the piece of PE there on the bench lines up with the mark on the left. So best off to hover it over there, hold it there, and then push it down. Make sure it's straight, and then push it fully home. Hold it for a second. The CA glue should grab it. If you get any splurge out like I have there, if you quickly grab a pointed cotton bud and just quickly wipe it off, it shouldn't leave any remnants behind. But make sure you get none on your fingers. Don't start leaving nice fingerprints like CSI's been there looking for a thief. And then we'll flip it over. We've got some Deluxe Materials Rocket Blaster on a micro brush. Load it up. I'm just going to touch it into the back, and that will instantly set the CA glue in the back. We can repeat that for the other side. Quite simple to do. Just take your time here. Don't try and fold the PE. Roll it nice and gently, and be careful with that CA glue. And these will go on no problem at all. Almost perfect. One of mine's not 100% straight. It's probably about 90% straight, 97% straight, but it's one of those. I'm happy with it. It's not an issue at all. I've gone around with a toothbrush and cleaned out all the panel lines, and we've hit it with some UMP airbrush cleaner to decontaminate all the bodywork. So we need black primer because we're going to paint this silver. Just getting a little bit of dust I've missed out there of a cocktail stick. So we're going to use Mr. Surfacer Black. We've got our Tamiya anti-static brush. We're going to give the model a complete brush all over, and that should help, well, it'll remove any dust that's already on there, and then hopefully prevent any more dust being attracted to the plastic. The sanding action, I find, attracts dust and static. So this is Mr. Surfacer 1500 Black. It's thinned about 60% with Mr. Hobby Leveling Thinner. We've got our 0.35 apex, we're about 18 psi. We're just going to put down several coats. Pretty thin coat to begin with. It's going to look really dark. The camera really darkens everything. But it's quite a thin coat going down. We're just going to go around and get a nice even base coat down. Let that dry and then put 2 or 3 other coats over the top so we've got a nice black primer base. Now, the primer will show any flaws, so if you need to, let it fully dry. Fix the flaws, whether it be a mismolded, a missed seam is the word I'm looking for. My God, maybe you missed one part of the seam, so you can fix that. Let it dry, feather it all out, and then reprimer it. Or anything else you might find that might be an issue. But preparation's key here. If you do a better job of prepping it, you won't need to do any sanding after primer other than maybe flatten the primer ready for paint. So just nice, slow passes with the airbrush. Now, the Mr. Surfacer, I've never been a huge fan of it, but I'm trying to move over to lacquers more and more. It's growing on me, but it takes a bit longer to spray, and it absolutely reeks. That is my main problem with it. Mr. Surfacer, Mr. Leveling Thinner, any of them, Mr. Colour paints, because of the thinner in them, they are very, very nasty on the nostril. It absolutely stinks. I much prefer Tamiya with their thinner, their lacquer thinner. I find it doesn't bother me as much. The Leveling Thinner absolutely reeks, but you cannot fault its effectiveness. It really is good. Mr. Surfacer is growing on me. It definitely is. Doesn't quite have the same self-leveling properties of UMP thinner, but like I say, probably 97% of my paints now are lacquer, and it's probably the way I'm going to go forward now, to be honest. So with a light coat down on both panels, just going to leave that to dry for a bit. It looks a lot darker than it is there on my screen. It looks like it's completely black. It's not. It's just got a nice thin coat all the way down. Not putting a wet coat down. Just going to let that dry, and then we'll come back and put another couple of coats on as well. So there we go. That's coat number 1 done. So second coat, we come down and we go up and down this time. Up and down passes. And then we'll come back a third coat and do side to side. And that way we don't really miss anywhere. So just take your time. Patience is key. We're not hosing it on. You can see the amount of paint going down. It's very, very little. We're not getting a wet coat down. We're just taking our time. Build it up slowly, and it'll come out great in the end. So yeah, it works well. It's a good primer. It's a good colour black. I always like it as an actual black. I've used it a lot in the past because I find it's in between a matte and a semi-gloss. So it's like it's hard to explain. It's not quite matte, it's not quite semi-gloss, it's just in between. So it's a good colour if you're looking to add tonal variation to something. So I've used that a lot in the past on bikes, on highly visible parts, because I just think as a black, it's a really good colour. But using it more and more as primer, I wish Tamiya would release a black lacquer primer. That would be really good. Why they don't have one in their range, I have absolutely no idea at all. But it would be nice if they would do, because I like using black as a base for not only black but for silvers, metallics, because it adds depth to the shine of the metal, to be honest. So the most tricky part on this to spray is right between that vent in the front, right in front of the driver's cockpit. It's a bit tricky to spray, so spray from the top and then turn it over and spray underneath through it. That's the way I got it done. But as you say, 2 coats is covering quite well. I'm just putting light coats down, nothing too heavy. And like I say, 2-3 light coats, and that will do as with Mr. Surfacer. Same on the back end, just some nice light spray work. Make sure you get where it'll also be visible once the engine cover is off. So where the front and rear clamshell meet, make sure you prime that and paint that. All your wheel arches, all in amongst the back. Obviously, if you want to paint underneath, it's a bit hard to do now because you've got no way of holding it. So that would be something that I would do later on down the build process. But as you see, it's going down well. I've mounted all the parts to old UMP bottles full of water using 3M sticky pads, basically. And then the mirrors, we're going to prime in white because these are going to go yellow. So this is Tamiya Fine Surface Primer decanted out the can. And again, we're going to pop a couple of light coats down on there, building that up slowly. And the rear spoiler, we've primed in Mr. Surfacer again and left that as is. Now, unfortunately, I'm an idiot and I forgot to click record at the very beginning. So you've missed me spraying the very front part and most of the back. But what we got here is LP70. That's the colour called out in the newer instructions. I believe the old instructions call out for TS17, but I thought we'll go with the LP spray. Now, one thing I learned today, well, the day I did this, and it's something I've known for a while, is LPs and TSs are definitely not the same paints at all. They are different paints. They are both lacquers, but they have different properties and they spray differently. Now, what I found out more importantly today is the LPs do not like to go on even remotely wet. The metallics I'm talking about. And I got some strange reactions on the body and a bit of powdering in some areas I would never normally get with lacquer. So we'll come back to this in a second. So going to spray our mirrors. We've got Mr. Colour GX. I forget the number, but it's yellow. It's one of the GX range of paints from Mr. Hobby. If you know GX2, the gloss black, this is the yellow version of it. We thinned it with a bit of Mr. Level and Thinner, about 60%. Couple of light coats down, coverages really well, really highly pigmented paint, and we're just going to spray our wing mirrors up yellow. So what I've done, I've left the body to one side to dry for 4 or 5 hours. I came back to it, I wasn't happy. I flatted it all. Again, I'm an idiot, I didn't catch it on camera. And then I've gone over the next morning when it's all fully dried and give it a couple of coats of TS17. And I have to say, as much as I love the LP paints, especially on smaller parts, for larger parts like bodies, the TS paints are difficult to beat. They are made to be put on wet and you get a far superior finish, in my opinion. So we've gone over the whole car with LP70 gloss aluminium. Wasn't happy, flatted it all back. Went over again with a few coats of TS17 and it's given a much better finish. So I think what I'll do in future is I will do small parts in the LP, metallics and large parts in the TS. Now the rear spoiler, after some discussion with my buddy Alan, we figured out that there's a lip on the very front of the spoiler that's carbon, and by the look of it, the rest of it is just a semi-gloss mattish black. So I've cut some scale motorsport carbon sheet, 24, just normal weave, into little strips, and I'm going to put a strip on the top and a strip on the bottom. It's a bit tricky to do, it took me a couple of goes. Using the Alpha rotary cutter and a ruler, we cut out the thin strips, and all we're going to do is place them right on the edge of the spoiler, on the front leading edge. Make sure it's on, make sure it's all straight, and then we'll set it in place as we do normally with all our decals. Scale Production Carbon is absolutely, Scale Motorsport Carbon is absolutely fantastic stuff. Very, very forgiving. Looks great as well. Really does add a nice touch of detail. There is a Studio 27 carbon set for this. I think I discussed that in our review, but couldn't get one. Didn't have the time to get it and thought, you know what, we'll build this one out of the box. Hopefully we might get some more schemes for this kit and I'll grab another one because it looks to be a nice kit, and we'll throw the whole everything in the kitchen sink at the next build maybe. So with that in place, we've got all the moisture out from behind it, and then we're going to hit it with some UMP strong solution. I've used this stuff many times. I know if you've got it in place and it doesn't need conforming, hit it with UMP strong. It will set it, no bother at all. If you need it to conform, hit it with the normal and just let it do its job and let it work its way in, and then hit it with the strong when you got it in place. But it's a case of just hit it, leave it, let it set, and it will soon set itself in place. And then go around, remove any excess, don't leave it to sit on the paintwork, and there you go. Carbon the top, we'll repeat that for the bottom as well, and then there's another decal to go on top, which we'll deal with in a minute with the decals. So we get cartograph decals with the kit, which is always a great bonus. I will say when we get to the decals in a minute, they are by far some of the thinnest decals I've ever dealt with. There we go, there's the first one down. No problems here. I did have a couple of them fold up on me as I put them in place. I had to put them back in the water, then back on the backing paper to get them to straighten out. They are by far the thinnest decals I've ever used, but they went down absolutely fantastic. Really well. We had a couple of issues with a couple of them, but we sorted them for the most part. Yeah, no problem at all. Pop them on, hit them with some UMP normal, and they've set in place. Absolutely fantastic. So with the rear spoiler, we're going to leave it the semi-gloss satinish Mr. Colour, Mr. Surfacer black. We've got our carbon trim on the front and bottom. We've got our decal on top. We've got some PE to add to the side, which needs spraying black one side, silver the other. And then I'm going to give the whole thing a coat of semi-gloss Mr. Hobby clear. Because it's not quite gloss, it's not quite matte, and it will blend everything together with all the decals. So that's my plan. So I need to assemble all the spoilers still. This doesn't need 2K-ing, so it's not a priority today. So we'll deal with that later on. Decals, like I said, not a huge amount of them. We've got a few, but they went down great. Really nice. Couple of seconds in the warm water. As you can see, I've got my coffee warmer top right. I've got a bit of micro set there should we need it, but we didn't really need it on many of these. They all just went in place perfect. Hit them with the UMP normal. It softened them, set them all in place. Only literally one that needed conforming, and that was the one on the front, in front of one of those PE plates we put on earlier. By look at the instructions, the decal's supposed to sit under the plate, but obviously because we put the plates on before painting, we didn't have the opportunity to do that. So I made the executive decision to pop it on and just put it over the top. So that was the only one that needed conforming in place. This one right here. So I popped it on, lined it all up, hit it with the decal solution, brushed it in place, and it's set in place. Absolutely beautiful. But you can see the LP17, really nice gloss finish, really well pigmented, pigment on, big. It's just perfect. It's a beautiful colour and absolutely perfect for doing this. So yeah, decals, great. A little bit thin. I wouldn't recommend this kit to a beginner. I think the decals might kind of catch you out a little bit because they are very delicate, requiring quite a bit of care. But for an experienced modeler, the decals were a joy to work with. Just take your time and bear in mind they are quite thin and they do like to roll over on themselves quite a bit. You can just see there I'm conforming it around the PE. Really easy, really simple, no problem at all. So the water pen, I used to use these with the liquid in. This is a acrylic watercolor water pen. So the idea of this, you fill it with water, and if you blend in water pencils, you can use this. But I got the tip off somebody I knew years ago to fill my decal solutions. Sadly found out they weren't airtight, so the solutions went off. So I got used to using the brush. There's nothing in there now, and I still just use the brush. So we've got some Tamiya panel liner black and grey. I've mixed it to give us a nice dark grey. I've popped the engine cover on the back. I'm just going to go around and touch very lightly in all the recessed panel lines and get the capillary reaction of the wash flowing through. Now, a word of warning, something I've found out in the past. If you're using TS sprays, let them dry for a couple of days before you hit them with a panel line wash, because I have found in the past occasionally it stains the paint. So let it dry for a couple of days because it's a gloss paint. It takes a little bit longer to dry. And I have had issues with the wash in the past because this is an enamel wash, so it shouldn't really react to it, but I found it can kind of stain it. More so, if you can see where I'm touching for the panel line, if you get a little bit extra on there, it will leave a mark where it's been. So cotton bud, Sansador odorless mineral spirits, and we're just going to gently wipe off all the excess, working our way around till it's all gone. So just take your time, a little bit of care here. It takes about half an hour, 40 minutes to dry this. For enamel wash, it does dry very, very fast. And just take your time. Just try and stay away from your decals. It doesn't tend to harm it. I've never had any issues really, but you still will be gentle. It's pretty fresh paintwork. We've got freshly laid decals. This is about 3 hours after the decals have gone down. So don't be scrubbing over them with a cotton bud. Just try and steer clear. Get the majority off with the cotton bud and then come with a dry bit of tissue later on, and just get any remnants off. Now, word of warning, go round, get all the wash off, have a look at it, make sure you got rid of it all, put it back down, pick it back up 10 minutes later and look around, and I'll almost guarantee you'll find a bit where it's missing. Yes. So once you're done, get a bit of tissue, gently go around, just make sure everything is removed, because like I say, if you look closely, you'll almost always find a little spot where you've just missed. And I normally used to spot it just as I started putting the tack coat down. There you go, look, see, I've just found a little bit. Just as I put the tack coat down in 2K, and it'd be too late to do anything. So check, double check, go back over and just have a little look and see if you can see any wash anywhere where it shouldn't be. But it's a nice wash. Black would be too stark on this, hence why I went round with the grey with the black to give a dark grey wash. And there we go. Right, so the next morning we're in for 2K. So we've got my respirator. So that is a Scott full face respirator, one of the best ones I could find. We've wetted our booth down with our water spray bottle, like so. There we go. The idea of this is only dust lands on the tissue, the moisture of the paper will grab it. We've got some medicine cups. We're going to mix our clear here. So we've gone with about 6 ml of clear, and we're going to do 2 ml of hardener and 2 ml of thinner. So we put the clear in first, get the lid on that, get that out of the way. Then grab a fresh, brand new clean pipette and grab our hardener. Like so, and then put 2 ml of that in there. If you can't quite grab 2 ml, grab a ml and then another ml. Best way to do it. Don't try and struggle and get air bubbles in there because you'll lose a little bit of the fluid. So you're better off grabbing a milliliter each time and pop it in. And then put the lid straight on the activator. Make sure the pipette is completely empty. So just let it settle, keep pressing it. And then pop the lid on that, put it well and truly out of the way. And then we're going to get this a good mix up using the pipette we just put the hardener in with. And this will get the chemical reaction started. Give it a real good mix up. And then again, empty the pipette. Make sure the pipette is totally empty. Like so. Throw the pipette away. We are never ever going to use that again. We've got a fresh, brand new pipette. And we've got some thinner. And again, coming to the end of the bottle on the thinner. So we're going to put a milliliter in, then another milliliter. So that'll be the 2. If you're unsure about getting them in, do them separately. Because if you go too far and run out of fluid, you'll grab air. And it'll give you a false measurement. So just take your time. Make sure you get the correct measurement in. And once it's in, again, make sure the pipette's empty. Just going to grab a touch more. We're a little bit short on that one. There we go. And then again, pop the lid on. Get the lid back on these bottles as quick as you can. Put them safe to one side. And then again, give it a real good mix. It'll go a little bit cloudy now. If we keep mixing it, it'll go back to being clear again. So make sure you're gloved up. I've got double gloved here. I've got 2 gloves on the left hand because this is the one that'll get covered in spray. I've got a sleeve on the left arm. I've got my full face respirator on. I've got a window cracked open. My fan has been on for the past 10 minutes. We've got the anti-static brush over the body. We're going to blow up with air, and then we're going to give it our tack coat. So this is the 0.35 Apex. I only use this particular one for 2K. That is all this airbrush gets used for. If you're using an airbrush that you use for general spraying as well, you could make a mistake one day and leave some metallic pigment in there of a completely different colour. So if you're spraying a red car and you get some silver pigment come through in the clear, that's going to be there forever. Or a bit of black primer, whatever. So in my opinion, you're better off having a dedicated airbrush if you possibly can for your clears. So yeah, that's the way I work. This UMP Apex 0.35 is just solely for 2K, nothing else at all. And it sits in a drawer and waits for its purpose every time. So we're at about 24 psi. We're going to put a tack coat down, which is pretty semi-wet coat, not quite wet, not quite dry, if that makes sense. We're just going to let that tack up 10 minutes and then come back and get some wet coats down. So that goes under there, we put it under our cover, and then we can work on the rear clamshell engine cover as well. Again, same process, give it a dust over and then give it our tack coat. So make sure nothing's stuck to it. If it is, wipe it off. And again, just a thin coat. Now make sure you're getting under all those wheel arches, where the body panels meet, anywhere that is silver. We're not going nuts, we just put the tack coat down. So all this coat really is for is to go really tacky, because this stuff gets unbelievably sticky, and that will allow us to put a wetter coat down next without the risk of runs, because the tackiness of the paint already down will grab a hold of the wet coat and hopefully hold it. So it's a fine line between going too much, so you're better off doing a pass, go all the way around, look in, make sure it's equal like I'm doing now. And if you find another area needs a little bit more, give it a go. If not, put it under out of the way. Now, if you've got separate body panels like this, for God's sake, make sure they don't touch or fall over, because it will absolutely destroy them. So take your time and keep everything away. Make sure everything's securely mounted. Nothing's going to fall over. If you look at the bottom of my bottles that the parts are mounted on, I have cardboard at the bottom to give them a bit of extra rigidity. So just take your time, make sure everything's propped up right, and then we've got our mirrors to do as well. So small parts don't need a lot of paint at all, so just a quick go over on each one of those, like so. And there we go. So they can be left under the same box. Again, make sure none of the parts touch, make sure the parts don't touch the side of the box, each other, or fall over. And how do I know? Because I've been there and done it. So 10 minutes later, we're going to reverse order now, because this is the order the parts will come out. And we're going to put down slightly wetter coat this time. Not a full wet coat, but enough to give it a bit of a gloss coat. So it should look glossy, but with some slight imperfections in it. So much quicker coat this time. As you can see, a bit more of a spray pattern now, a bit more of a slower pass. It's like almost a bit more of a deliberate painting technique, because it is. And again, just making sure we're all nice and equal. Now we don't want to get any runs, you don't want to put it on too thick. We want to put enough down to give us that nice glossy look. Bear in mind, the longer you have it out of cover, the more chance you've got of fluff, dust, hair and everything landing in it. So it pays to be quick, but obviously you also need to be thorough as well. And then onto the main body itself. Again, we just go around, make sure we've got an equal, even coat everywhere, and then spin it round and do the same again. So you've seen me do this before. I know a lot of people are going to be put off by doing this because of the fear of doing it. As long as you follow the spray techniques and safety precautions, it's pretty easy stuff to use, to be honest. The more you use it, the better you'll get. I still have issues every time. I keep changing things, changing the way I do it, and screwing things up. Look at the Audi. The Audi got ruined because of my clear coat. So it's just one of those things. But just take your time, work your way round. And at this point, we're not trying to get a perfect clear coat. We're just getting enough paint down to give us our second coat. Because again, this kind of acts like a tack coat. So again, we just put that down, leave it to dry. Now on the front of the engine cover, or sorry, the bonnet, wherever it is, intake, it looks like there's a spot of oddly coloured paint. It looks like a fingerprint. There's nothing there. I've no idea what the camera's picking up, but there is absolutely nothing there at all. It's very strange the camera picks it up, so I've no idea what's going on with the camera there. Coat number 3, so again, we've left that for another 10 minutes, just having a quick look around again. Making sure we're all good, and then we're coming with our final coat. Now, whatever we're left with here is how it will look when it dries. So this is where it's a fine line between getting a clear coat and getting runs. So I like to put a coat down. So again, quite generous with the paint. We're not pulling full back at all, but we're getting enough of a gloss coat down. And then I'll leave for a minute, paint the rest, come back and just have a look where needs any more and add it as required. There we go, just work our way around everywhere methodically. And then we use the light to our advantage and just have a good look, angle everything. Need a touch more 2K. Angle it all, make sure you're getting all the recesses into that scoop at the front. At the bottom of the sills, where the sills would be, if you can imagine that on this kind of car. Just make sure you've got enough gloss coat down for it to self-level. And if we need to, if it's a bit thick, we can sand it back later. Because I'd rather have it a little bit thick than not enough, because it's much harder to get a shine out of it when it's not quite glossy enough. So just a final inspection. Once we're happy, I'll pop it back under the box for a couple of minutes while I kind of tidy up, put stuff away, clean the airbrush, and then before I leave the room, because I leave the room for a couple of hours so that I flash off, I'll just get out of the box, have another look before we throw all the 2K away, and look for any flaws or anything that needs rectifying. But usually everything's pretty good. So I'm just moving that part there. It's a bit precarious. What happens is the cardboard gets wet off the tissue and starts to bend. So it's something to bear in mind, something I will fix by using some plastic in future. So again, this part's been drying for, well, settling for a couple of minutes. So I'm just going to have a look. And again, just see a little bit there just needs adding. A little bit there. Just a little bit down the back as well. I think, right, while I'm at it, we just go over very lightly. So not a huge amount of paint going down here. It looks a lot, but it's just because of the spray pattern. And there we go. In fact, I think that was the third coat on that part, actually. I don't think I was checking it again. I think that was actually the third coat. But looking good. Not too bad at all, but yeah, we need to be careful here. So here we go. This after about 2-3 hours of it drying. It's looking all right there. Again, still see that strange mark. No idea what it is. I can't see it to my naked eye. The camera likes to pick it up, so we'll see what the picture camera does at the end when we take proper photos. Really weird. It looks like a floor and a metallic finish, but I can't see it to my eye. And there we go. Back part's looking good. We've got a decent gloss coat. The silver metallic looks good. So no complaints there. 2K's gone down well. So this can dry for a few weeks now while we work on the rest of the car. And let's go back to me for some final thoughts. Okay, there we go. We are all 2K'd. So that's going to be left to dry now for a couple of weeks where we work on other projects, other parts of the build, and so on. Went okay. The decals were tricky. They're very, very thin. I certainly would recommend them to a beginner. I think they might bite you in the backside a little bit. They're good, but they're just so thin. They need a little bit of care. So yeah, flip side there. Nice decals to work with. A bit thin, but they went down absolutely beautiful. Very little fuss. Not a huge amount of decals on there, so quite a fast scheme to do. Not a lot of cleanup on the body. I didn't actually have all that much footage. I normally end up with about 8 hours of footage per video. I think I only had about 5 for this one. So nice, quick body to clean up, prep, prime, paint. No real dramas. Bit of an issue with the LP70. Lessons learnt with that one today, as usual. And as I said in the video, I'm going to stick with using the LP metallics for smaller parts. And on larger parts, I will mostly be using the TS sprays decanted because I think they cover better. Because the spray paint is designed to go on thicker, I think it sprays better, it gives a better gloss coat. Whereas I think the LPs, especially the metallics, don't like to go on as glossy or wet. So bear that in mind. If you have any experience of that, let me know. I've been using the LPs for quite some time. And as I said in the video there, they're not the same paints as the TS. They're not. They're both lacquers. They are totally different paints because they both behave differently when spraying. They do. Trust me, they are different paints. They don't act the same at all. But yeah. So there we go. There's part 1 done. What I'm going to do next, I don't know. I might go and do the Lamborghini engine. The Countach we were working on, because I've not worked on that for about a month. So I think that might be the next video. Might pop up a review in the meantime. If you've got any ideas for reviews, maybe we'll review one of the other kits I put up for discussion, and that could be another build future on down the line. I've got some good builds planned coming up, so stay tuned for that, including an F1 build, which is quite exciting to do, so I've got something in my eye. But yeah, there you go. As always, leave any comments, suggestions down below. If you'd like to support future videos on the channel, I have a Patreon me link in the description down below and a PayPal me link as well. Any donations are greatly received, so thank you for everybody that does do it or anyone that's thinking of doing it. The links are there. And as I say, you can get this kit from myself on umpretail.com. I'll put the link in the description down below, and you can help support our business as well. So there we go. Like I say, any comments, leave them down below. I do read them all. Any questions I try and answer. Make sure you sub to the channel, give a thumbs up, thumbs down, and click that bell notification so you get notified of all our latest videos. And of course, the boring spiel, which everybody hangs around to listen to. Check out International Scale Model Facebook page and forum, umpretail.com, my Paul ISM Facebook page where all my personal and modern work is shared, Live the Bench page, Off Air Hangout group, and the ISM GB group as well. Thanks for watching today, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.